study, tree survey, and rendering in the back of those townhouses. And the third is to, deny it.
I'd reference it to the team with today, and really have time to address your comments in this traffic study and whatever.
Well, let's say they do the traffic study and the tree survey and get all that done in the rendering, and they don't change anything else. Do you really want to see it again? Or-
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I would move to the table.
Okay, I'll second that. Motion by Kevin, second by myself. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. How long will it take you to get those two items finished?
You better get moving, like, tonight. Hold on,
Yeah, so we have 60 days from the date of the filed application. There's an argument to be made that you raised, Mr. McKeegan, that there really wasn't a complete application because there wasn't a complete traffic study. But we would want to get an extension letter from you folks because it would be teed up for the April supervisors for your public hearing. So we're not going to know where you are until the end of March at this meeting. I'd suggest we at least get an extension until May.
30 days.
Right.
But I think if we.
I will request this.
We have,
I know that.
Jeff and Jackie have a form for
Yeah,
you.
I got it.
But I think what the planning commission would like you to take away from this, I don't want to speak to these guys, is I think they like what you're doing. I think it has promise. There's some details that need to be ironed out. Good luck.
Thank you. I do appreciate your time. I appreciate the input.
Can I ask a question?
You're the boss.
No, I'm not the boss. In theory, when do you like to start building homes?
Start building homes?
Yeah, I mean, which season? I mean, is it the summer, winter, fall, or?
So generally speaking, the way that we like to operate as a company, we're just a small one. We're not Ryan Homes or we're not. In a perfect world, my end of the company is land acquisition, land development, paving the roads. I'd really like to have my roads paved, and I know this isn't gonna happen, but something paved in our communities in July or August, such that the other half of the company can move in there and start our specs and our models, and we can get our landscaping improvements and our monument signs and our street lights and all that stuff done. And the place looks like kind of like a bomb went off for 6 months between September and next April. And in April or May, it's Disney ready, the grass is growing, the lights are on, the whole shebang. That's my model. Doesn't always work that way. The answer, short version is late summer, is what I like to pay. And once we get out of the ground, we can build through the winter, that keeps a bunch of people employed. And then in the springtime, we're ready to go.
Before you run off, I forgot one important thing. Any comments from the audience?
Yeah, I had a couple.
You want
So I
to
gave
hear-
you a
you
list,
want to
it
hear
covers,
these as well.
good job covering it with everything on there. Jackie's benefit, a couple of things.
Might I ask for the caller to state his name? You mentioned your name to me before, but I didn't. write
Oh,
it
yeah,
down.
Chris Capone,
Kristen.
Support. Township president. Mr. Slagle said, we haven't seen anything like this. I did want to point out, if you want to see something that's exactly like this, you can go down to Chapel Harbor, as an example, in O'Hara Township. It's off of Old Freeport Road, intersection of Chapel Road. It's the same type of thing, mixed development, single-family homes, townhomes with driveways on the alley that run behind all the townhouses. You can see exactly what this looks like. The townhouses were moved closer to the main street in the front of the houses to allow room for the alley. So it's like verbatim what we're talking about. You actually want to see it in person, see what it looks like.
We're not doing anything out of the ordinary, that's good to hear.
I'm sorry?
We're not doing anything out of the ordinary, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, sometimes, if anyone is inclined, you can drive down there and see what it looks like to have the house, with that short setback and the alleys behind it with the driveways off of it.
And it looks like a neighborhood, a community that way, because the home,
Yeah,
townhomes are closer.
The driveways in back is
Yeah.
attractive. I was gonna say a couple of things in that. I do agree fully with Jeff. I think you wanna make it as wide as possible. People are gonna be putting garbage cans out there. As Preston said, there's gonna be snow piled up there. I think, by the time you're done, that what you thought was an adequate width is going to be very restrictive. The other thing I mentioned is if you look at the length, if I may put this up, I'm a little concerned about the overall length of this alley with the number of houses up there. And I guess my question, suggestion, just thought is there any way to put, I realize you may lose a house or get through.
No.
You know what I'm gonna say? Put an
What are you gonna say? It's my design.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm just saying, it is such a long way.
He said, did he ask me a question?
Because, you think about, someone coming in and driving down this whole long lane, to get into this house. Something.
It's a two-lane road.
It's two ways, so
Yeah.
you don't
Well,
have to drive.
if it's wide, that may be adequate, I'm just.
So what I was probably gonna ask them after this is that, instead of having a traditional road with a 21-foot carpentry and two 18-inch wedge curbs, is just make it 24-foot flat. Is where I think I'm.
Fine.
Yeah. And in doing so, again, a car being 7 foot wide, 24, you got basically your two cars in the middle, and you got room for your garbage cans without it. Plus, you're gonna put them in the driveways.
I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just pointing out
I'm not,
things
that was my intent.
The other, I cannot recall, for buffer zones, is construction allowed in the buffer zone, or does that have to be untouched?
So the way that the ordinance is currently written, they can grade, they can do anything they want. And the only thing, not to talk out of school here, but the only thing that's required after they, grade the buffer zone is to plant grass is the way that it's currently written.
I'm just asking if the access
It doesn't-
road is in the buffer zone.
It doesn't need to be landscaped, although we encourage that.
Oh, the access road for the storm.
Yeah, the access road for the storm
Thank
water
you.
line. The last thing, on the tree plan, hopefully you won't shoot this down as quickly. I was gonna mention, we have this area back here where you're disturbing things and like in here. If possible, it'd be nice to see trees planted there. And the reason I mention it's like, for me, if I'm living here, I don't wanna look out across the valley to someone else's backyard. Is there anything we could do to put more trees in these spaces? Would be nice, just a suggestion.
I'll respectfully say, I don't disagree with what you're saying. Those slopes, and this has become a very hot topic with what's supposed to happen on 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 slopes. All well and good, you plant trees on there, in 40 years when the tree falls over and the slope wants to degrade because it's now got a big hole in it, a root ball. So we will not be planting trees on those slopes. It would not meet DEP standards to do so to begin with. They'll be vegetated. They'll be vegetated with lawn, but to come in and drop trees all over the place, the first one that falls over rolls obviously always down the hill. Behind it is now a big hole that holds water that can affect that slope.
Almost like a problem with
Correct.
How about hedges? And hedges, and then let's let them grow and they don't fall over.
Quite honestly, sir, till we get done with these over the course of 3, 4, there's natural succession that happens on those hillsides. They'll become an old woody field. You'll have
Yeah.
woodier material grow in, and I'll be long in the grave. So there's an oak tree growing, but that's the HOA's responsibility to worry about those.
Right.
Final comment,
Everyone's gonna have
I think-
trees too, we're gonna have a
And,
spruce tree and 2
correct,
trees.
and there are tree planting requirements on lot, that doesn't change the slope, but, and there's an entire, I don't know, I'd estimate between those, there's 20 acres of woods between those, your example, from here to here. You might look over it, but, that's a pretty good distance.
Just for the record, what was the total number of units?
172.
So 172 times 3 trees
Correct.
is what's gonna be planted. There'll be that many trees planted back. And what's gonna happen here, I can see it coming, is that when you get to that townhouse cluster, there's no way that you can put 3 trees per unit there. So there'll be some peripheral planting someplace that we'll discuss with the developer.
Right, and initially, we actually have trees shown in between the buildings just to meet as near we can that requirement, for tree planting.
But we need to talk
Lots of
about
trees.
that.
I was thinking more of a view block rather than the local landscape. Because last thing, just to say, I think you saw this issue with the bubble on the road. I just want to point out, it's not just emergency access, but like, my cul-de-sac was extended, so it's now 12 feet long, and I will tell you, delivery trucks, Amazon drivers, UPS, well, UPS is good. Most of them do not want to drive all the way to the end of the cul-de-sac. When they come up, they make a delivery to, a house in the first third, and then they do either the 12-point turn, or they turn around on someone's lawn, or they back into,
Yeah,
trucks.
to your point, it keeps them from using a driveway.
Sorry?
It keeps them from using a driveway. And then we have a situation where we have a 4-inch concrete sidewalk with a heavier truck that's going up, it's gonna eventually crack something, so. Having the bubble.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, so people will, I agree with that, 2,700 feet long, people are not going to go all the way down to the end and turn around.
Yep.
Unless they absolutely have to. UPS is the exception, they must have some policy, because the UPS guy religiously goes down.
Yeah, so we'll have a hammerhead or something like that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Just you might have answered this, but I wasn't quite sure.
You said training for the record?
Sorry, Eddie Owens. The light green, is that the only area that will be disturbed? Like, or will you disturb where the picture shows trees and things like that in order to?
Right now, what we show is the limited grading plus a little more. There will be a couple of areas where we're gonna have, like, as I mentioned at the end, the utility easements. So there are a couple areas where we're gonna have like a 30-foot strip to get the sewer to the pump station. But this is, for the most part, the remaining.
And we're missing a fair amount of our site to the north above that sheet,
Yeah.
from a standpoint of site disturbance relative to, trees to remain.
Because in other developments, it's just been clear cut. I mean, I know that in PRD sort of talks about that, but I just wanted to make sure that was still the case. And, so there's no playground, is that, I mean, right now you're targeting families, and so on neither upper or lower, there's any sort of like play area or park?
So,
or-
We did not, we've done them in the past, and they don't get used, and, because if you want the playground, you're putting in your own backyard.
Right,
Just
well, there's
in all
not
full
necessarily
disclosure.
a black backyard for the townhomes because, and they're not gonna put a playground in the front yard, right? We just said the townhomes, the backyard is the driveway. So there's no room for this set to have a play area. And there's not gonna be, they're not gonna fence in the front yard. I mean, I like the idea, I'm just saying this community, if you're targeting families, needs an area that, like, you're not gonna put a fence around the front yard so the kids can't play out front. I mean, protected, cause the next thing right out after that is the street, and then in the backyard, it's just the driveway, so they can play like, things in the driveway. Do you understand what I'm getting
Yeah,
at? I think we may need something that like, I know in other developments, you guys have insisted that they put something that makes a park-like experience that young families can, walk down to enjoy. I mean, I know my
That's not
children.
true. Most
That's not true.
developers pay the fee, the rec fee, and they don't put a playground in.
Yeah, we don't have
That's
any
the actual
developments
fact.
with
Well,
residential.
so-
I'm
and
considering
being-
other developments that I've lived in, and they.
Okay, but you made a statement that most developers, that's not true. Most developers pay the fee, and they don't put that facility in. These guys are taking advantage of this next to Emerald Park, and they can just go down the hill and still have that access to the
So
park.
the kids could walk.
Yeah, I don't disagree that we ought to have a discussion about playgrounds. This is something we're wrestling with in my community. We've talked about playground. Once you start talking about playground, now you have to worry about liability becomes a real problem for the HOA. Now, if the municipality wanted to build a playground, maybe that's another story. But I get where you're coming from, but the practical issues with it are such that I'm not sure it's something we can impose, particularly as we are in the township, as I said, $140,000 to improve recreational facilities elsewhere, so. It's
just-
hard.
I mean, I'm really coming from the perspective of young parents, kids at home, you know, you've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. To have to hop in the car to go to Lane, you're not gonna send them out by themselves, to be able to walk down the street to swing on the swings, it makes a difference. And there's not the availability to do it at the home because of the layout, so.
You know, the other observation I make is, it's almost a marketing issue too, for the developer. And sometimes these things kind of go,
Yeah, well, it's in our, you know, it's in our options that we want them to have those facilities, so.
But it's an option. But it's an option.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, we have our correspondence, see what it is. We have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Peter, second by.
I'll second it.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
I really do appreciate that was
You can keep it up.
to allow that. I'm looking this, if we needed to put a little half moon in there. So if it's, to your point, Mr. Slagle, if it pleases the board, we can bump 29 to 35. To push that out a little more to serve dual purposes also as being the pull off for when you're getting your mail, and also widen that road a little bit to more easily accommodate a turning movement of an emergency vehicle.
And just for my information, the 31 foot would go up to the bubble, and then the rest of it would be 24.
That's correct.
Just so.
Because we don't, I don't know about you, but I don't want a 29 foot
I don't
wide road.
want
We're gonna
either
have a
here.
drag strip.
Hold on, so you're saying you want the 29 foot, this is good work how we have it here.
Yes.
But up here, we'll do the bigger bubble right there, and that's it. Everything else will be the
And then it's-
regular road.
And then conventional.
You guys.
Just,
Bigger mailbox cluster phase 2, where you're gonna bump it out to 31, is that for the whole development, or is that just phase 2?
Well, we show one over here also.
We've got two. So you're not jumping across the street.
Yeah, Brett, another point to make is this road is climbing, and then up here is the high point. So that's a perfect spot, nice and ADA accessible for the mailbox, and it's nice and flat, then we start climbing down, or going down. So this is the reason we picked that spot, it's the perfect high point of the road. So,
okay. And then, if you would change it to the French version of cul-de-sac. I'm sorry.
I gotta be honest, I had to laugh at that.
Well, I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, let's just punch all those letters together. Okay.
It's not a cul-de-sac, it's a convulsive.
So on the private alley, and, well, let's just let that go for, give me an operation, ownership and, operation and maintenance plan for the private alley. Get the survey, data on there. Moving down to number 3, are there any natural artificial features, that I should know about, or the planning commission should know about that you haven't shown? Any wetlands, any,
We have,
hazardous?
our plans do show, we did have streams and wetlands delineated, and those are on the plans. But as far as any additional information, just the streams.
And none of those would impact
We're not aware of
the
that.
system you have currently designed, right?
No.
Okay. Number 8, change Hampton and Shaler to Oakmont. Get a comment from the fire marshal regarding the fire hydrant placement. If you could address that during preliminary, just where you would put fire hydrants, and get a statement from the fire marshal, just as far as adequacy goes here, so I could see how that would play out. As to whether they end up being there, I really don't care. We'll handle that during the utility meeting.
And for what it's worth, we like to get past this, or at least have this discussion with respect to location of all those other components before the fire marshal is asked to parking and mailboxes, other components might,
So you don't ask them twice.
I'm not asking, they don't like to be asked twice.
Page 3, the HOA, when you get your agreement together, get that with our solicitor's hands, so we can take a look at that. Number 12, as far as the parking, school bus, mailbox clusters, please coordinate with the US Postal Service or the school system to make them happy. As far as the variances, we'll decide whether we need them and whether they need to go before the zoning hearing board. The schedule, you'll give us the schedule once we decide how many phases you're going to have. I've already seen the letters regarding public adequacy of water and sewer. Moving on down to the overflow parking, I think you adequately addressed how you're gonna handle that. On the final plans, they'll be showing the location and sizes of all the utilities, storm sewers and sanitary sewers. You'll need a statement on the drawings that says that once the asphalt roadway is installed, there will be no cutting of the asphalt whatsoever. The third-party approvals will be during the, or after the final approval. Is there an entrance sign, sir?
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah, there'll be two.
If you could get those out for tentative approval as to where you might wanna put them. Also, Alberto, I need to see, site triangles at each entranceway so that we're assured of having adequate site distances.
You see the traffic report that Mike here provided, we have them on there, but I can also.
Yeah, but show me the site triangle, the actual right-of-ways on the drawings, is what I'm looking for. For the board's information is that you'll see a very tight bend on your drawings as to the way that the road is currently designed, and the developer will be flattening out probably, I'm gonna say at least a 300, possibly a 400-foot section of roadway, to flatten out that bend at that particular location. With that flattened bend, do we have adequate sight distances?
Yes, that's part of the traffic report that was provided.
Is that where it's like a little hump on the road as well?
Yeah, so there's about a 700-foot section starting from our project down towards past the intersection down to here, where we're not only fixing the vertical alignment, but the horizontal alignment. So you'll be able to look out this way and see down the hill before anybody's coming. And same thing from over here, you'll be able to see both ways and get the adequate sight distance there.
I might come back to that.
Okay, I can keep going. But yeah, show me where your entrance signs are gonna be and just make sure they're outside of that envelope, because what I don't wanna do is pull out of your plan and have your sign in the way of.
Oh, sure.
So-
No, 100%.
Moving on to the next page, preserve a minimum of 20%, 25% of the vegetation, which, just looking at your plan, I'm gonna say that it's probably closer to 50 than 25.
Yeah, it was close. We have that information on the plan over there. It's on the cover page.
60.
That's okay, it's more than 25. is
So
the
it's
answer.
double, it is.
Yeah, I know. So on the streams and the buffer areas, you're gonna be applying for a DEP permit.
There will be some utility crossings, so we will be applying for GPs.
Okay. And with that way they'll be able to encroach closer than the 50-foot minimum standard. The geotechnical report was submitted to us, and full-time geotechnical engineer and inspector will be on site as well as a certification at the end of the job. And again, what this does is that you're basically trading my services times for your guy to be out there. I've come to the conclusion is I don't want to know anything about how you grade or what you grade. I just want you to be fully responsible for what you grade. So.
So want me to stop talking? So
I'm gonna pull out.
I can assure the board, we insist, it is a standard of practice in our company, that if we're moving dirt, placing fills, there's somebody there, not respectfully, not Mr. Slagle, a third party watching my guy move that dirt. It's the best insurance policy you can buy.
And the only reason why I've been doing this is because I got involved with North Stabane Majestic Hills lawsuit, which ended up being about $7 million worth of landslides, and I don't want to do that again.
We don't want to.
No, so I'm going to devoid myself completely of that. On the streets, what our ordinance says is that a private street is only allowed that serves up to basically 5 houses. So we have a situation with this concept that you've got more than 5 houses on a private road.
Can I say something to that, Dan?
Go ahead.
I mean, we have the public roads where we're honoring the front yards, so we already have frontage on public roads. To me, this was more of a driveway, of a shared driveway, not a private alley. So that's the way I took it. I just put an easement over that. I didn't give it a right of way, just has a 30-foot access easement for the driveway. Every lot here faces on a public road. These guys have a public road, this is a public road. So that's why this is really what, the alley isn't serving 5 houses. We're not claiming frontage on the alleys, we're claiming frontage on the public roads. So that was our reason for not asking
You're right,
modification.
and we're not trying to exploit a loophole, we're trying to produce a better design.
Let me complete my thought. I'm leaning toward, and I would like your guys' opinion, I'd like to make the alleyway a public road. And for us to run a snowplow down that public road, and by making it 21 feet, all you have to do is put wedge curbs on it, and we would take it completely over. Just a thought, guys. And that would get rid of any variances or modifications regarding a private road. And to tell you the truth, I would be inclined almost to not have the wedge curb, just leave it at 21, put the carway through there. But anyways, I'll leave that up to your guys' consideration as to how you might want to handle that. But instead of going for a waiver or modification, I don't know if don't have a problem with that. But okay, so moving on down to the utilities. I don't know how that statement says.
That's what I'm not cutting the road.
Sorry.
You really don't want us to cut that road.
Yeah, that's what it is. That just don't cut the road again.
We get it.
Street signs is part of what Larry will want as far as stop signs around the secondary public access. One of the things that the planning commission installed was for plans that were over 100 units, that there would be a secondary access. The way that we looked at this plan, there is actually 2 roads out of it. So I think it complies with the secondary access portion of that portion of it, and that's the way we kind of looked at that. And as far as the long cul-de-sac, I can't see any reason where I could link up another road to it. So if you could look at it the same way I did, the page 5 typical road section will be on for the final plan. As far as the detailed storm sewer design and roof drains and things of that nature will be on the final design, as well as the concrete pipe and the roof collector lines. And again, the roof collector lines was a product of that lawsuit from Majestic Hills. The trees, they have provided us with a intro tree survey as far as what that's entailed. Moving on to page 6, hopping down to the water and sewer system. Again, we've already addressed that. We've addressed the fire hydrants. The easements has to do more with the site triangle for me, but they will be providing a recorded plan that will show where all those easements end up being. The street lights, I'm assuming that the lights are gonna be on the houses, or are you gonna be putting poles out front?
Our preference is to put them on the homes. We put them in the street, they get run over. I'm not opposed to potentially, because we will have entry features, that we do some lighting at the entries, but to put them, whatever that, every 300 feet up the road, they are objectionable to the person that owns them, because they're the one with the weed whacker that's got to maintain.
Can you explain that to me? Because in my plan, we don't have that.
So the question is, are there going to be street lights on, I believe, on the public roads? Your ordinance does, I'm going to speak, does not require them. We will have a post light both in the yard and on the home for each and every building home that's constructed here, which provides that either ambiance lighting or safety lighting for folks that would be entering your house. This question is street lights being whatever, 12, 15, 18 foot tall poles out in the road become problematic, historically speaking, for me, because nobody wants them in they want them in the neighbor's yard, they don't want them in their own yard. And as the ordinance doesn't require them, we did not show them. With respect to lighting at the entrances, here and here, we would provide that, you know, monument lighting or whatever that might entail to identify that you're now in the development. Is that adequate?
Okay, so just so I'm clear, are you gonna put a post light out front or not?
Yes. We're just not putting them on the streets every 300 feet all the way through the
So
city.
every house will have a post light?
Oh, yeah, every house will have a post light.
Okay, again, this is me talking, I'd rather just one on the house and no post out front, but it's up to you guys.
As long as we're here, and I realize the ordinance doesn't speak to this, I would, Brett, I think what you did, my plan is wonderful, I love the post lights out in front, I love the garage lights, I really do want this secure. However, also based on experience in my plan, you need a street light with the mailboxes on. And how you light those mailboxes is important because people don't show up during the day. So I would urge you to consider putting 2 street lights in the plan in the vicinity of the
Kevin,
mailboxes.
I apologize, I jumped it right to monument and entry. We will absolutely, I'll just say, we should have it.
Yeah.
We had to go back and retrofit. So we,
Decorative lighting, like a nice decorative pole, you know.
right, whatever a standard of foot candles would be for adequate safety lighting in the areas of the entrances and the mailbox locations. Provided that we're not blowing up the next guy's house, so, you know.
Well, if I understand where you're proposing to put the mailboxes, I don't think it's gonna be an issue.
Nor do I, and I misspoke, had I thought of mailboxes, just live and learn, they go in everywhere. I apologize to you and 51
So
other
Kevin,
people.
post out front of the house or not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Dan, it just makes the neighborhood so much safer at night.
Okay.
People are walking on the sidewalks at night. It really does.
Okay,
So it
Thank
really
you.
does light up the sidewalks.
no, I'm good, I just,
Are these posts optional or mandatory features?
Mandatory. What someone does after they buy their home, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily control, but they will be a standard feature of the purchase of your home.
Because I think in our plan, they were optional.
You know, everybody has one, they're on every, you know, a lot of people have the light sensors on them.
Keep
so-
asking, yeah.
I think that will actually really add to that streetscape when that interior. If it's too bright, they can unscrew the wall. They'll get a street light. Or, a post light there. And they're just a little 8-footer, they're the, whatever, 60, 80-watt bulb in them. These are not, we're not lighting up, statements.
Can we make that dusk to dawn lights? I
They
mean,
will all have, they would have a photo cell on them that automatically.
Ours all have, they have a little photo cell on the pole. So, actually, I don't even think you can turn it off.
You
Yeah.
cannot.
It's this photo cell and
They can't turn.
we have bug lights in ours just to help the photos. You know,
Oh.
it's no big deal.
Only downside to the photo cell, they do go bad.
And we replace
And
ours.
yes, correct. And there's one company in the world that makes those photo cells, and believe me, we've looked into alternatives.
okay, so that's what the HOA is for. So let's talk about sidewalks. At some of the intersections, give me some, bubble wrap with some, obviously the sidewalks aren't gonna comply with the disabilities, but as long as the ramp's doing the bubble ramps, that's what I'm looking for. The way you have this thing designed, that there's sidewalk along one side, because that's the way it's set up, right? Is that a 4-foot or 5-foot?
I think your ordinance is 4-foot minimum.
I thought I know 4 meets, in theory, ADA, whatever your ordinance, your road section says, we will do.
I'm okay with 4.
Okay.
Yeah, again, this single family part does have it on both sides, out here, we put it on the exterior part.
Very good. Monuments on the outside, when you get to the, various fees, that the township requires. Moving down to the comments, I'm assuming you're gonna keep all the dirt on site, you're not trucking it off.
Correct.
Allegheny County will have their 2 cents at this thing.
Certainly.
Management and agreement, regulations, you can get those to me for the HOA. If there's any covenants running with the land, put it in the HOA. the Allegheny County Conservation, these are third-party permits. The revised overlapping labels show existing boundaries, and then finally is the developer's agreement. That's my 2 cents on it.
I know you got something to do.
Okay, you got any comments?
I wanna hear what Kevin has to say first, Brett knows what I'm gonna say, so, but Kevin, hear what you have to say.
All right, so let me, first of all, I want to congratulate you for trying to comply with the PRD. I'm not sure you've quite met all the particular boxes in terms of the application. But first of all, is there anything in the file from DA&T Investments consenting to the filing of this plan? The reason I'm asking that question is, if this PRD is approved, that affects a change in zoning classification of the property, and I don't want this property owner, if this project does not go forward, coming back 5 years from now complaining about a PRD somehow limiting future development. So I do think we need something from the property owner agreeing to the filing of this application. It should be relatively straightforward, but
It's very easy, and the answer is very complex, but it's easy.
Okay, I mean,
Easy to get.
that's a letter from the owner, that's it, okay.
That's the complicated part.
Now, I just want to go through quickly, and this is more for Dan than the applicant, a couple of technical requirements of PRDs, more for the record than anything. Okay, so, under the new ordinance, the site has to be not less than 20 contiguous acres. We didn't really talk about, at the time this ordinance was adopted, a site like this, which is bifurcated by the street. But it is clear on this plan, to your satisfaction, that each of the phases, each side of the road is more than 20 acres, correct? Okay. So if we're setting a precedent here, you can come to us with a PRD on 2 sides of the road, you're gonna have 20 acres on both sides.
Okay?
Okay. All right, second of all, the permitted density, can't be any greater than the underlying zoning district unless 35% of the proposed PRD is common open space. Have you looked at the permitted density to be sure we're in compliance with that requirement?
I believe Lydia did, and it looked like the answer was yes.
Okay, all right. And the math is relatively easy, but again, just to confirm, the quad townhouse dwellings within the PRD do not exceed 50% of the total number of dwellings in the plan, correct?
Yes, we have to understand, we had talked about that, correct?
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're asking me or.
I'm asking again, I just wanna make sure that the township has
Yes.
addressed that. Okay. Now, I would just point out that, that's looking at the plan as a whole. I'm not sure you get, and I'm willing to look past this, I'm not sure you get compliance with that if you just look at the phase, particularly the phase 2 individually, but I think as a whole.
As a whole, it does, yes.
Okay.
If you start looking at things individually or a particular phase,
Okay.
it's questionable.
All right, and you've also satisfied the disturbance, non-disturbance percentages, the common open space percentages. Okay, cool. Again, that's more for the record than anything. All right, so now, to the applicant. So, Dan gets at this in his letter, but the tree study you submitted was only based on sample areas. It was not the entire site, correct? I don't think the ordinance lets you do that. I think you have to sample. I think you have to go through the entire site.
And I'll answer, we completely agree
Okay?
that is in fact a requirement.
Okay?
Due to time and honestly, 18 inches of snow on the ground,
Okay.
we did come up with, and by no means are we trying to skirt a requirement, but just from a standpoint of, let's get something on paper. Fully acknowledge the need for a full tree study of her, Mr. Slagle's recommendation of how to do that, because, we need to, yeah, we just couldn't do it in 2 pieces.
Right, and again, I want to make sure that that point is clear because I'm worried a little bit about precedent if we let a sample get through.
Nope.
All right, in the sewage materials that we were given, one of the authorities indicated there would be a need for a pump station here.
There is.
Who's gonna maintain, who's gonna own that pump station? Will it, are you sure? I'd like that clarified.
I didn't hear the answer.
I was gonna say, the authority's probably gonna own it, but.
Maybe not.
Correct, respectfully.
Yeah.
I still need to work through that detail. I have reached out to actually neighboring property owners to possibly put this in a better location from a drainage area.
Okay.
But in any event, Deer Creek has, at least verbally agreed that this would be theirs. They would like it to pick up as much as we can, but I can't make somebody levy on their property.
Well, my question is less to do with the location of the pump station and more to do with clarifying who's gonna be responsible for it 10 years after it's in.
To answer that directly, Deer Creek.
Deer Creek will, okay.
Deer Creek.
All right, all right. So now let's talk about the one that really caught my eye, which is the traffic study. So, the way I read the ordinance, I don't think you can get by with the letter you submitted. Okay? I think the ordinance is clear that you need a real traffic study from the PennDOT specifications that looks at intersections that have been identified by the township engineer and his consultants as one that's and that's not the letter. That's not the letter we received. Okay.
I didn't interrupt.
All right, so, at least me personally, I don't consider, if this was intended to be an application as opposed to just a discussion, I don't consider the application to be complete until we get a traffic impact study that meets PennDOT standards, that looks at, I think, 1, 5, and 10-year horizons. The letter kind of says, hey, don't make us do a full-blown traffic impact study. But again, this is the first time through this ordinance. I don't think there's a justification for not doing a full-blown traffic study, particularly on this road.
However, I'll ask you to speak to the particulars of the ordinance. It was not our intention to dock.
Sure.
$20,000 study, but also it is our intention to not spend $20,000 to have this committee have major objection to the overall concept.
I'm not.
I know that's what,
Okay.
I know that.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
the
from a
traffic-
tentative, but what I'm gonna ask you pointedly, from a tentative plan submission requirement, to Mr. McKeegan's point, is the application adequate? Is that traffic study a requirement for tentative, discretion of, or requirement of final?
It was shown as a requirement for tentative to do a traffic study.
Okay.
Yes. And it was triggered by, I think it was over 100 trips per day, I think it was.
Well, that's in the conditional use part of the ordinance, but the PRD ordinance under tentative says that the criteria includes the road system is serving the proposed PRD is adequate in terms of traffic volume, capacity, and construction type, as documented through a traffic impact study by a professional traffic engineer. And then later on, the ordinance says application and review procedures, application for tentative approval. Sorry. It's in there. There's something, Dan or Jeff, am I forgetting something about 5.1 and 5?
I don't know, I'm just sitting here, I don't have a document in front of me, I'm
Okay.
sitting here thinking that I know that area, I've been here 31 years. You might want a ticket counter for horses, you know, as about cars.
Well, I want to talk about that too.
We're building a horse line.
Yeah.
Let's get that off.
I apologize here.
But while Kevin's looking for that,
Yeah.
any traffic study that's gonna be done, I think we need to take into account the intersection of Cove Road and 910. 95% of the traffic coming out of Stan is going to Route 910, it's not going to go the other way. We need to know what's gonna happen down there.
I don't live here, we will, and if it eases, we will meet the ordinance requirement. I believe when we looked at the need for a traffic study, it's relatively, I won't say undefined, but we will do what we need to do, and we anticipated the need for a traffic study. But keeping in mind that traffic study is based on unit count, unit type, even the different housing types in here change that traffic.
But when I read it, it said if existing trips per day, and what you anticipate adding 150% to those trips, that's gonna have significant impact on those.
Yeah,
Certainly.
If you take a look at, in the new code, section 375-29B1, and this is under application for tentative approval. If the project is anticipated to generate more than 100 new entering or exiting trips per day, a traffic impact study prepared by a registered traffic engineer in accordance with Pennsylvania Department of Transportation guidelines, including opening year, 5 and 10 year projections, and analyzing traffic impacts on those intersections identified for study by the zoning officer and township engineer. So I think a more full-blown traffic study needs to be prepared.
Not a problem.
Okay, all right. Now, the last question I have, again, going to Cove Run, and I appreciate the developer's willingness to take care of 800 or so lineal feet of the road. But the letter said something to the effect that the site distance will be verified post-construction. And I guess my question is, okay, you got a plan, you put this in place, and it's determined post-construction that the site distance is not adequate. How is that fixed? Just posing the question. I don't have an answer, but I think the township and the developer need to work through that in terms of, you know, how that obligation is secured and what happens if we find out that the site distance is not adequate.
Yes.
You or me? Yeah, I'd like to answer that. Okay. So, I believe the intent of that was that, you know, there's a certain height we're gonna measure from a certain distance, from a certain point on a road, to a certain point.
2.5 feet.
3.5, I know it's 3.5 to 3.5, and then you get into the slope of that road, which all affects that horizontal distance. We certainly aren't going to build the road, later find out that it doesn't meet that slope distance, okay? I believe perhaps, when we are discussing how that road gets realigned, is that shaving a bank back for. I don't think the intention was the actual, or at least, don't let me speak for you now, but the intention wasn't the asphalt, it was, do we need to shave this bank back? Do we need to make sure this brush isn't in the way, whatever, and that potentially could be an after the fact, we gotta do a right-of-way clearing to make sure that is adequate.
Okay.
So again, don't let me speak for you, but you really can't measure the site distance of a road until it's built.
So what I was gonna say is that normally, you don't find too many developers that are going to participate in straightening 800 feet of roadway unless it's in their best interest. So when I saw
That
all
would be
this
no.
happening, my assumption was, and maybe it was a wrong assumption, is that obviously there is issues with the curvature of that bed.
Right.
And he was doing it in order to achieve adequate site distances, which is why I brought up about the site triangles and things like that, because not only do we have a situation where the curvature and horizontal vertical alignment of the road there, we gotta make sure that nobody ends up putting entrance signs or trees and they vegetate this wonderful thing, and next thing you know, you can't see 350 feet in either direction. So,
You have enough frontage in your property to do all this, or are you gonna need right construction activities from?
We are actually currently negotiating, with the state, with the game commission, on requiring a certain, enter Jeff, a certain portion of right-of-way, basically here, that allows us to flatten that curve. They are agreeable folks, actually been wonderful, but they are not wanting to give up an inch if they don't have to. So, and to maybe close that loop a little bit, Kevin, was just, our plans show required grading, because there's required grading outside of the right-of-way or on top of the road that guarantees or provides for a proposed site distance. We would want to verify that via the actual construction, just in the event that topo's off.
I understand your explanation now, just the language of the letter. Okay. My last question, I'm surprised Preston didn't let's start with this, what market are you aiming for?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, let me give you my point.
We certainly would see the north portion being more of a conventional, single family, I won't say nuclear, but mom, dad, 2 kids, kind of in line with a more suburban neighborhood. The south portion, and we showed these yellow blobs, sort of generic houses. We initially started with the Hidden Falls.
Yep.
But we really took a harder look at it and said, with the proximity to the park, with the rural nature of this may end up being more conventional single-family homes. We've even found that, Kevin, in Hidden Falls, where we thought we were gonna sell every single one of those to retirees or near retirees, and we had quite a mix of families move in, which.
Weaver's not gonna do this as a custom home development, it's gonna be part of production kind of development.
Correct. I mean, we'll end up, from the townhomes, we'll develop a palette you right from. The single-family homes, everything in yellow will probably be from a selection of 12 to 16 different house styles. That can go in there.
The price points. Let me give.
Depends how much you guys beat me up.
No, let me give you an example.
Sure.
I live in a Rwanda home built in 2000. I'd say most of us bought those homes between $150 and $200. Okay. Now the homes are worth, say, $500. Rwanda's building a new plan that we approved, and the price point is $700. I mean, that's a hell of a jump. So, I mean, whom are we anticipating is going to buy if the homes are real expensive?
First, our goal would be is to not start at that 600 to 700. Is to come in, and I don't want to use the word affordable housing. These aren't going to be $300,000. There's no way they can have that anymore. We'd like to be in the 5s to start with the singles. And that, I guess that today's world is kind of affordable.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Ryan and Richmond, I have to give them credit. So I'm thinking base price was 260 something, but the final price was in the high fours.
Was 425.
But the individuals were saying that they want $100,000.
And that does go to, back to some of the zoning discussions we were having earlier, is that, this is what I do. Unfortunately, we need to get that density of adding a townhome component to offset the fact, because we want to be able to roll into the package a lesser priced single-family lot, and it's just math. You guys are all business guys. I don't care how you're not getting around it, no matter what you do for a living. And that does enter in. We do not want to come in here starting in the 850s. That's not why we're here, and it's not what our company does.
Take you 10 years.
And I would like to retire before I have that. While I have a hair on my head.
Trustee, do you have any questions, comments about this?
You know, in the city, they had these speed humps that they put in. And even in our plan, Shawnee Ridge is a rather long road. Every now and then, you'll find someone who will be zipping through. And this, I don't think our cul-de-sac is as long as this. But I think there's a high.
You mean the speed bumps in the middle?
Well, I'm just saying, there's gonna be a high probability that some young guy is gonna be zipping.
We'll be happy to put them in as long as you guys take the calls from your public works staff.
Our public works people do not like speed
Oh,
bumps.
no,
It's kind of
no.
hard to snowplow over them.
I absolutely hate them. I said I will be happy to build them, but,
Speed hump.
I hate them myself. Every now and then I drive my street that has one and I forget it's there.
you're right. And you hit your head off the roof of your car.
Couple of comments, starting with your narrative, where you talk about the dwelling unit density. If you start out talking about single family, 2 dwellings per acre, you're gonna have 94 of those, which uses up 47 of your acres. when you go to the townhouses, you don't start off with the same 97.8 acres. Deduct the 47 acres from that, and then give us a density with the townhouse. You can't build one house on top of another.
I noticed that in the narrative,
Just-
so that's
just to
the narrative,
clarify.
but the plans do have it, and it shows how the, single families is, so we did have on there, so for the single families, you would have, sorry, what is it? Yeah, up top here, 94 divided by 2, 47 acres, 78 divided by 4, 19 acres, in total it's 66.5, and we have 98 acres.
Yes,
So, yeah,
I'm
the
saying is
narrative.
my sheet says it started at your.
Yeah, I saw that
Say
too, and I figured
97.8 acres, so it should be like 1.5 units per acre rather than 0.8. Going back to the, traffic study, so, one thing to consider, because of the additional load on that road, which, as we know, it's fairly narrow, hilly, winding, whatever. When you do your, adjustment there to the road from your plan, please have the traffic study look at, would it be feasible or desirable to maybe widen the road? So you could have a left turn lane into the north portion that would accommodate 2 or 3 cars, so if you get a lot of traffic on
You
that
mean
road.
a drop lane?
Yeah, a left turn lane, so you actually make it 3 lanes wide. Okay?
I mean, I know the letter said that wasn't.
No, it's not required, but have it considered as part of the traffic
To
study.
the extent that it doesn't impact the utility or a stream or a wetland that throws us into some other entire, permanently, a short 50-foot drop lane is, Albert, just like, that's fine. Because we're gonna be working in the road anyways.
You're going down to your field view lane. That's currently called McClellan Road, right?
Correct.
And are you proposing just to rename it for that short section in front of your development? I would think the whole road has to be renamed.
There's been a lot of debate about the name of that road. Field view came from the game commission.
Okay.
You guys have it as McClellan. I
don't-
would call it whatever.
I don't
We-
mind changing the name of the road, what I'm saying is the whole road has to have the name changed. not
I don't
just a
disagree.
portion of it.
Anybody can tell me what it is.
Yeah.
But to point out, we are rebuilding to here.
Right.
So that becomes
Yeah, but you don't suddenly change the road name just because
I don't, does anybody actually know the name of the road?
I looked at Google Earth, and I think it's
So,
a field view.
We, in our office, named roads built.
Oh,
Okay, when the turnpike shut on the overpass, it kept McClellan on the bottom end, and the top end filled it. So that's been determined since the last.
Has that been changed then already? That been changed then?
Yes.
Okay.
That is
I wasn't
the name.
aware of that.
That is the name of the road.
It's
That's all
field view.
documented change.
okay.
But we
Thank you.
can't drive from Cove Run to 910.
Yeah,
No, you
yeah.
can't
Correct.
anymore. Now,
Not unless you wanna buy new cars.
Not on
Yeah,
that
so
road.
we could get to.
Standalone cul-de-sac.
Which then, I mean, you know, our ordinance says we have more than 100 houses, it requires 2 entrances. In essence, technically you meet the ordinance, but because that is a dead-end road, you really only have one entrance to the whole land towards the public street, which is something that you think about.
I know, this is my job, right? I guess that really depends on, and I've dealt with this. We do exceed 100. But as this is
I
an
think you have
existing
100
road,
you have 100.
I got one entrance here and I've got another entrance.
I know, but see, technically, Field View Lane becomes your construction road. That's only got one.
But it's an existing road. If it were called, yeah.
Say,
that-
technically, you meet the ordinance, but.
I know it's a fine line.
You could find another entrance, that would be greatly appreciated.
We cannot, I must say that, just, and I'll point out, we've got about a, what do you think, Albert? Probably a 90-foot ravine here, and they're hard to see, but anywhere, once we get past this point, as you guys, you know, Cove Run dives, and it's 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 feet down to the bottom. To pop something back out to Cove Run Road. And believe, we looked.
Right.
Because
even where you said beyond that point, you could put another connecting street, Cove and Road, that would solve that problem. But, yeah, technically you're in compliance.
I do believe, and if I could pop another street down there, we would, but it's to meet Dan's road ordinance requirements with vertical curvature on the approach, and then getting to a maximum slope, I would be,
So if we make.
it'd be
the
over
pub-
there.
If we make the private alley public, we have 3.
Yeah, that. I wasn't gonna say it.
Okay, Dan, I'm not complaining about their streets, I'm complaining about the existing field lane. That's the problem, but anyway.
I understand.
And,
Well, you'll be improving field view as part of this, correct?
yeah,
Yes.
are you widening it?
Okay.
And please be sure to widen it up, because what I see is so many cars parked in the streets by the main road, as a school bus, is not gonna go off over on the road, because he won't go in either side of this. He might come into the south side, he definitely won't go in the north side, because they don't like to turn around.
Well, that was something Dan identified, Mr. Slagle.
Dan.
Is that, we widened the last 150 feet of this road for that purpose, that we anticipate that, be they moms or dads, are gonna be sitting there sitting in the car, waiting for the bus to show up. We have no control, as you guys all know, whether or not the school bus enters or doesn't enter a development, and where they turn around and how they back up.
I know they won't enter the north side, it might come around a little bit south
They,
side.
correct. But if they,
Something to consider whenever this gets forwarded to the board of supervisors, we definitely want to include no parking on at least one side of the street at those entrances, because we don't want people parking on both sides. Like, the streets going to fire. It's miserable.
Okay. I have a laundry list of things I just need a yes or no from the planning commission, once you guys finish up your questions.
I think I'm done.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me finish, let me
Okay.
talk about something before you go on to yours, because you're gonna finish with yours, right?
Yep.
So when I got this plan, I started making a connection between Road 1 and Road 2. Road 1 being in the north portion, and Road 2 being the main road, into the plan of phase 1. Not to be confused, but Alberto, you can point to that area. No, I don't want to point to that.
okay.
So I started drawing on the plan. I'd like to see there be a four-way on Cove Run Road between the 2 phases. I just think it would flow better. And I hand drew it and I sent it over to Alberto, Brett, and Dan. The unfortunate part is we met probably over a year ago initially on this, or close to a year ago. And then Allegheny Land Trust came in and bought all this property. And then mysteriously, all of a sudden, it was sold to the Game Commission. Game Commission now owns all this property. And it's very hard for these gentlemen to approach the Game Commission, because they're very, they hold their cards tight to the vest with all their properties. And it's unfortunate because they can never do anything with that triangular piece in between where the 2 roads are separated right now as you see it. So if you could point to that area, Alberto.
I'm just gonna draw on it, so if you get it out there. Oh, is this too nice?
No, it
Right?
Yes,
That's what you're looking
trying to
for.
make a connection, that if they could acquire that property off of the Game Commission, what they could use that triangular piece for at Old View would be like an overflow parking for the townhouses, which is, again, something we have a lot of issues with in this township. When we have townhouse development is where, when there's a occasional party, where do all these cars go? Because it's a problem for our police department, because they're always getting called. Let alone the daily, overflow parking. And being nice neighbors, the developer could offer that the hunters can also use that parking area for the hunters during the daylight hours, obviously. And I think would be a good blend, but I understand from Chad and Brett, they've replied to me, and it's just very hard there's too many moving components. And it's just unfortunate that we started talking about this way back when, and then they come in and all of a sudden, everyone's hands are tied. But,
You're talking about the gaming commission?
yeah.
Who in the hell's the gaming?
Not gaming.
No, I
Oh,
mean,
didn't I mention
like-
the casino?
Wait, no,
Yeah.
wait, no. My point is, everything they own belongs to the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This is not a private company.
No.
This is not a person.
And sir, that is exactly
Okay.
where we bumped into a brick wall.
Oh, no, you don't have the right people talking to them. I mean, but my point is that, I mean, it's ludicrous to keep going through this crap. I mean, I drive out the wall.
Well,
The trouble is
to
you have to get
respond
all
to
the
Jeff,
citizens
and
to agree.
this is a great planning initiative that he's got. We needed 2,500 square feet of right of way along here to realign this road to meet these general site. We were arguing about a square foot. We were down to arguing about a pipe lane. In their defense, what they're saying is, we're using taxpayer, everybody in the state owns theoretically a piece of that. We are not going to give any more, not 1 square foot more than is necessary, even on a land swap, because to Jeff's point, Mr. Curtice's point, this is completely invaluable to them.
Correct.
Even if I offered to give them back, a triangle up here, we were on the phone with them and I had my CAD system was up. I don't know if anybody here is hunters. I am, but the law is 150 yards from a house with a rifle and 50 yards from a house with an archer, so a bow. They could care less about me giving them back that acreage in somebody's backyard because it's a more problem for them. And it's, by the law, useless to them to take that triangle and swap another triangle somewhere else. And I mean, your idea is great. It really is. But
Can I ask a question? Because Jeff, that's a brilliant idea. But we're imposing, if my math is right, about $140,000 in a recreational fee on this plan. Is that because there's no playgrounds here? In other words, if the township would agree, we'll help you get this, and we're gonna waive that recreation fee, and you can use that money to fly off the game commission, is that awesome?
I could just say that you're breaking
I don't wanna
precedent.
go there? Okay.
You're breaking precedent.
Developers don't ask the same thing.
Well, but they are putting a playground, that's my point. I'm not saying waive it. They got enough room to put a playground.
I don't, it was more, the gaming commission is and will be continue to be, I'll say, difficult, but their morals and their compass on what they're doing is not changed. It's, when we acquire property and someone gets a hold of this in the PA bulletin, or it ends up in a, a newspaper, and they've gotta go back and defend, we use taxpayer, even if they got a 1-to-1 land swap, the perception, at least is what they tell me, the optics of it looks that we did this and somebody else benefited from it, even though we got.
You mean someone from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania benefit?
No, developer benefit.
Yeah, there'll be one
Don't
person.
you live here?
Pardon?
You live in the state of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, I mean, this is crazy.
There'll be one person that will sing out an objection and it makes political fingers look bad.
This is a completely political, as I'm sitting there talking to these guys, this makes all the sense in the world to do this, this, and this, but at the end of the day, somebody looks at that in Harrisburg and says, what in the world did you spend an extra $1 for on this property, and then you traded it for this guy who put it in a development next to our game lands, you did that and they benefited. We didn't get any of it, we got the same acreage that we had yesterday. That is at least how
Yeah,
it was.
just keep in mind though, when, at the end of the day, if your development gets approved, their boundaries change. It's not their bold boundary anymore. Where you have houses close to your boundary, they still have to follow their 150 foot rule.
100%, you're 100% right.
So they do change. So they're gonna have to reevaluate that.
So
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Try to explain that to,
Brett, are you saying that you only approach them with a swap as opposed to writing them a check? Because if the issue is, we paid, I don't know what we paid the land trust. We paid the land trust $100 per acre and we get $100 per acre for that, where's the loss?
You need an appraisal, and it just starts learning about.
I think Jeff has such a good idea.
I don't disagree, I've never disagreed that Jeff has a good idea. I've been, in my sixth meeting with the game commission,
Yeah.
as we began with, just show us what's safe and it's easier to get done, we only wanna go to, because it's not actually go to Harrisburg, it's easier to get it done one time, so what did we do, Alberta, we offset that line like 20 feet saying, this is, back to your site distance question, this is more than we can ever need to achieve site distance and mow the bank and everything else. 2 months later, it was, we wanna talk about, moving that in, then it ended up with right-of-way versus, access easement, or there was 4 or 5 rounds of drawings that went to them, and we were down to, just move that line over 6 inches, because you're 6 inches beyond your grading limit, or your right-of-way limit. They like their land, that's why they're the game commission. And they really saw that triangle as being, even writing them a check or a swap as being, I don't disagree, from a planning initiative, it's the right thing to do, but it's.
We don't need to take any action on this, do we?
I thought I was getting approved.
This is just.
If you guys understood it a little.
So,
Anything else, Dan?
And again, I'd like to do what's called a speed round here, if we would. So the alleyway that splits well, first of all, does the planning commission like the townhouse concept with the back doors?
Yes.
Okay. Based on that, the alley that's in the back, private or public?
Probably.
Private.
It'll be easier for the homeowners.
Design a real-
I think if you leave it private, it's gonna be a free fall, especially longer term down the road.
While we're on that alley, one question, is your intention that visitors will be parking in back off that alley?
My intention would be if you have visitors, pull your car in your garage, you have 4 spaces in your own driveway. If you have a 5th visitor, they park behind your fence.
If it is
But how do the visitors get from your driveway around to your front door? They'll travel.
Or they either open your garage door or, I'm
I-
certain
I
we'll
don't
have,
think- I don't
there'll
think
be a
a lot-
rear entrance.
I really don't think a lot of visitors go in, park back, right park in front. So we want to make sure one side is.
So- Well, first of all,
The unit design would accommodate a rear man door,
Okay.
adjacent to your garage. So that.
to that point before we leave it, if you could provide a conceptual architectural rendering of a back door, if you would, for,
Back of one townhouse.
of.
Brett, you're probably familiar with it. I would look, there's this concept, because of my, was used to connect the trails. So,
That's what we all looked at that.
Right, we've been,
you can probably look at that.
I'd like to take all the credit, we didn't exactly do.
But just provide a rendering so that we have a concept as to what's going on.
Kevin,
So,
you know what I noticed at the Mango Trails? Their alley is only like an 8-foot, 10-foot wide alley.
It was never meant to be public,
Right, yeah.
but that's the difference here. But the design in terms of being able to get in.
is the one there private or public?
I'm pretty
It
sure
has
it's
to be
private.
private. It
It's
has to be
private.
It's
10
only
feet wide.
10 foot wide.
Dan, let me say something. I mean, we're gonna dump all these driveways on this road, call it public, call it private, whatever you want. I would, and these guys were gonna provide a 30-foot right-of-way. I would be inclined to see that road probably public, but I would probably make it as wide as possible because of the overflow. And let it be the interior portion problem, and not so much on the outer perimeter of the single-family dwellings. So I would make that road as wide as possible, so that we can still put parking in the back with the driveways. The problem's gonna be, you can't really park there all that much because every driveway's gonna jet out, and you're gonna be blocking somebody. That's gonna be the problem.
Yeah, it's gonna be like Le Mans, everybody's gonna go out at once at
Right,
7
so
o'clock.
in my mind, I think that maybe we shouldn't have any parking in the back, but I still think the wider you make that,
Well,
everybody's gonna be congregating to that.
So no
one road
parking on the
to get in
street,
and out.
only parking in their own driveways.
Yeah.
Well, if it is public, then the township can control that and have no parking.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just maybe go a little wider than the 21 feet, so there's enough room, because you know how congested that's gonna be.
But it isn't gonna take too much to fill in those little green spots and make it all asphalt. I just said it just, I didn't mean it.
Plus, if we get another 18 inches of snow, I mean, they are completely, you know, because where can they put the snow? And all their cars in the back.
Well,
So it
again,
has
that's,
to be a public road where they trucks.
I mean, that situation will be the same whether it's private or public. If it's public, it's you guys. If it's private, we provide a service provider that's there to plow snow. And we did think this through. We've got up here the 75 foot, right? You got some room up here, and we've got some room down here that was, you're gonna push through that alley. Let's face it, you get 18 inches of snow, things are gonna turn a little ugly. Somebody's gonna stop some grass up. I don't care where it is, that's gonna happen.
So for the time being, let's just lean toward public and no parking. On the long cul-de-sac, okay with the long cul-de-sac, or do you want them to get back to 1,200 feet?
How can I have circle?
Or don't care?
I think your idea of a half circle, halfway is.
Okay, so if we go with, so we're okay with the longer cul-de-sac, 31-foot wide entrance road, or should we keep it back to 24 and put a couple bubbles?
People are going park.
Or 31 and bubbles?
31 and bubbles.
Okay, 31 and bubbles. We good with that, guys? 31 and bubbles.
Okay, well, let's define, because I'd like to lead here with the best directive I can. We've got 31 for the first 100 feet here. We've already got 31, okay. Third, we've got 31 here. Right, hold on. We've agreed to add. That's just a good night.
No, we're having time out here.
You need a new machine. I need less bumpers. I'll trade you. Since she's not recording.
Yeah. My phone did. The one that was live streamed. But I have this, that's why I have this.
Well, Dan, while she's doing that, just off the record, the reason I'm okay with the cul-de-sac lengths is the explanation as to how they can't get the secondary roads in. But you're in agreement with that, correct?
Yes. Well, plus there's a precedent set throughout the township that I can easily name you 6 of them that exceed 1,000. And because we've allotted before, I don't think we'd be in a position to deny it here.
Okay.
The question is what conditions you want to put on
Yep.
that approval.
That's right.
So what the intent was is to make it 29 feet from the entrance to the first bubble.
We never had a bubble. We had, we're talking, we had this for student, kid drop off, pick up, then we widened out here that served that same purpose if needed, as well as the mail. I really said you have one, a 20, that's a drag strip.
That's not what I said. I said our intent was to
I'm
make it
sorry.
29 feet up to the first bubble. What I proposed to the planning commission was, he said, should we leave it the first 200 feet or whatever it is, 31 feet, neck it down to 24 feet so people are in channels, and then put a, some type of a wider bubble halfway at the bend, I think is what we're looking for.
Right, what I'm,
So
it's
we're
just
back to
taking
24 feet.
somewhere around where that, if everybody can see that, is making that,
And what I'm looking for is a half moon.
Right,
Yeah, he'll have this part right here.
yeah, the half moon will be,
And whichever side can accommodate the grading.
it would be this side so that the half moon doesn't end up in, the basketball hoop you mentioned earlier isn't in
Next
your front
question.
yard.
Are we
Nobody's
okay-
gonna like that.
Are we okay with the location of the cluster mailboxes and we're okay with that? And obviously that's gonna be confirmed by the US Postal Service. So, but tentatively, our group is okay. Then as well as the school bus dropout, we're okay with that. Are you okay with their concept of the overflow parking areas with the wider driveways in the back of that? We're okay with these, this? Okay. And we're gonna go with the post lighting out front, the,
Township Planning Commission called to order, please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Jackie, let the record show that everybody is present except the person in exile or code enforcement officer. Okay, first item of business is the reorganization, election of a chairman. Have any nominations?
Well, as you know, having consulted with Michael and President, I make the second nomination as chairman.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries almost unanimously. I would feel. Election of vice chairman. We have a nomination.
To nominate Kevin as our vice chairman. I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any other nominations? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Appointment of board secretary. Nomination. Board secretary. Peter Bloom. I'll nominate Peter. Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Appointment of recording secretary. Nominate Ms. Zippel. Rugy. I'm sorry.
18 years now.
I'm still living in the past, you know? And do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Monthly meeting dates will be the fourth Monday of each month except November, which will be held on the third Wednesday, and December, which will be held on the third Wednesday. Next item is approve the October 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes.
Who is the approval now, sorry?
Pardon?
I didn't hear, who did that one? Oh, okay, on the meeting.
We just did it.
Which is an announcement.
Any comments? on the Meeting minutes.
Are the mics on? It's kind of hard to hear.
Pardon?
Oh, yeah, they are. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
they're on.
Thanks.
Thought I was yelling loud enough anyway.
No comment.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So, yeah, I make a motion to approve the minutes as it.
Second the motion.
Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Jackie, would you just note that I abstained from that since I was not at the meeting?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Development proposals, Cove Run Road Plant PRD. We have someone to speak to that?
Me.
So if I can introduce yourselves?
Is this working?
Hmm?
Is this working?
Yeah.
Think so.
Good 1 second to gather the multitude of paperwork. Good evening. My name is Brett Schultz, representing Weaver Homes, also the Cove Run Partnership, who's here tonight to present to you initially our development proposal for approximately 100-acre development located with the not addressed Cove Run Road. Just for a little bit of familiarization, Emerling Park is approximately 1 mile to the west of this location. Okay, again, on Cove Run Road. Excuse me. With me tonight is Alberto Arquin of the Gateway Engineers. They are the engineer of record for this project. And as we are as we are very formal here, for the record, just to state the plans and applications, appropriate fees associated with the conditional use application and the PRD, which we'll get to in a second, were adequately submitted. And Mr. Slagle, please stop me if I'm saying anything you don't agree with, that they were adequately and appropriately submitted January 15th of 2026 for appearance at this meeting tonight. I'm sorry, February, for appearance at this meeting tonight. With that said, again, just a brief introduction, and I'm sorry my voice is losing me right now. That's a brief overview of the site. We've got what we're calling the north and the south portion, bisected to a degree by Cove Run Road. In total, for the record, the complete land area associated with this application is 98 acres, 97.8 to be precise. I'm probably going to regard that as 70 and 30 if that's agreeable to everyone. In front of you here, and as I believe you all have, is our existing conditions plan. As you can clearly tell, the site is mostly wooded, nearly all wooded. The north portion is of a older forest type scenario, more terrainous, meaning steep, a lot of terrain over there. The southern portion, being approximately 30 acres, is old growth or regeneration woody field, which is primarily flat, quite honestly. Again, in Cove Run Road, bisecting the site. Availability of utilities currently, there are no utilities immediately available to this location. We have secured availability letters for water and sewer from Fox Chapel Authority, as well as Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority, with the normal provisions that those utility extensions are completed by us. We do have those letters, so availability of utilities is something we addressed right out of the gate.
Brett, excuse me, you say Fox Chapel Water Authority, where are you getting that water from?
Rich Hill.
I was thought it was available.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know you were back, and I appreciate the correction. Thank you. There is capacity in these water systems, as they are now, to be extended to the site with no extraneous upgrades, being a tower or a booster pump or anything that would be outside of the normal operations of the development of this site. Thank you again. And you move back. We have also been in conversation with 2 electric providers, Duquesne and First Energy. Both are available to be extended to the site. Again, that cost would be borne if there is a cost by we as a developer. In addition to that, natural gas is also available to the location, again, at our cost. Okay, so briefly just wanted to run through where we're at with the site as it exists today. From a development standpoint, we have approached this under your newly, and I don't know the exact date, but newly adopted PRD ordinance, which we believe, and we'll get to modifications in a minute, we believe we comply with to a T, with regard to use and density and those items that, otherwise the PRD may affect. Now, moving on to what we are proposing, because that's what everybody wants to hear. In total, we are proposing 172 dwelling units. Those units consist of, and I'm just going to point this out, to the southern portion being here, a total of 111 dwelling units, of which 33 homes would be of a single family, more conventional variety, with the interior lots being of a townhouse, and on the north portion being 61 individual single-family home lots. The lots themselves do comply with the now current PRD ordinance with respect to their sizes and acreages. All of the single-family homes, which are those in the more orange or yellow color, are a minimum of 75-foot width. We did actually, at Mr. Schlegel's request, provide a supplement of those lot sizes. They generally range from 75 to approximately 120 feet in width. There are a few outliers, being corner lots and so forth, that are larger than that, but from a standpoint of a development envelope, we're looking at a 75 to 110-foot wide lot. With respect to the townhomes, the interior units, they are 2, 3, and 4 unit, right? We never got a 5 in that. 2, 3, and 4 unit townhome units that are, I'll say, appropriately assigned to the interior of the site, thus leaving them not, I'll say, visible, but exposed to the perimeter of the property. We've got, what did we end up with? 7 stormwater basins, as are shown in blue on the shown plan here, that are appropriately located in size, at least at this point, Alberto, to accommodate the stormwater management requirements of the development. The setbacks, with the exception of the modification I'll speak to in a moment, do meet your PRD ordinance. As well as presenting, we are requesting 2 modifications, and modifications they are from, as the PRD permits, variances or modifications from the stated standards in the PRD. Those are 2 items. One would be the length of cul-de-sac for the northern road, and I don't want to stand in your way to see this. 2,740 feet. Correct.
740.
So we're requesting that length be permitted to be extended. Justification being we've got an uphill climb, and we've got, I'll call it a spine road. There is no opportunity for our northerly road to connect back to Cove Run without massive bridges and a whole lot of earth moving that is not necessary. Our second modification, while we're on that topic, would be to reduce the front yard setback of each and every one of the townhome lots from the requisite 20 feet to 10 feet. And I'm going to touch back on that in just a second. We've had 2 advisory meetings on this matter where we had discussed these modifications, and while certainly the board, the committee would need to consider and review those, I believe this is a space that we landed on through those communications. With regard to the length and the justification for the modification of the cul-de-sac length, we have agreed that Mr. Slater's request to widen to a width of 29 feet, a certain,
It's actually a 10.5-foot lane, so it's 31.5 feet wide.
okay, to a distance of 150.
It's about 125 feet out of the transition.
To permit, whether it's UPS, whatever the case might be, but primarily school bus drop-off and pickup location right at our entrance, as well as about a third of the way back, we've also widened the road to that same distance that would serve the same purpose, potentially, and also that would be our centralized mailbox location, as well as permit a turnaround, a vehicular turnaround location, so you would not have to travel the full 2,700 feet to reach the cul-de-sac. Our second modification is a reduction in front yard setback for the townhomes. One of the topics that was immediately identified, and which I happen to agree with, by Mr. Slagle, was parking for townhomes. We all recognize that it is a more dense scenario, that you're compacting that. Our design contemplates those townhomes being to the interior of the site, and through a lot of back and forth, actually that'd be a great time to, through a lot of back and forth, we ultimately came to the conclusion that the proposal of a very important word, a private alley or access road to the rear of these townhomes, thereby allowing those driveway widths to go from standard 15 or 20 feet. I can tell now.
I'm sorry, do they all have their own garage?
They all have their own garage. This will put that in a little bit better light. Each of the townhomes will have a two-car garage. Shuffle my cards. Oh, they're the same. They're the same exhibit. What we've done here, knowing that parking is going to be a topic of discussion, is just to try to identify that the introduction of a rear alley or rear private access road would permit the rear access townhome driveway to have, on average, about 30 to 35 feet of driveway before you would hit the back of the unit. Alberto's group did a really nice job of actually showing cars parked in those driveways. So, getting back to our modification, we are asking or requesting that our front yard setback be reduced from 20 feet to 10 feet. That allows that additional space to be absorbed to the rear of the units, thereby allowing up to 2 vehicles in the garage. We all know 2-car garage is really a 1-car garage, with your lawnmower or whatever else you may own. But with a 30 to 35 foot rear driveway, at a minimum, that's 2 cars, if not 4. We did a sort of a representative sample of how that might look. So those are our 2 modifications. And quite honestly, with a project of this size, to get to only 2 modifications, I commend Gateway Engineers for getting to that point. Yes, sir.
In the front, are there sidewalks?
Your ordinance currently requires, and this non-shaded white line would represent the sidewalk. For the townhomes, we would,
Not have.
I think is shown on there, they would just have a sidewalk right to the street.
Now, how far is that distance from the street to the front?
24 feet,
Oh, okay. So
So-
if we had the 20, then it would be
34 feet, but you lose it on the back
Yeah,
side,
backside.
and then you get into, can you park 1 car or 2
Yeah.
cars? That makes, and there are some dimensions on those drawings that actually exhibit.
I think it's a great concept to alleviate the congestion, because we've experienced with townhouse developments that parking is just a problem. And I think this is a good trade-off to help alleviate that problem. It's gonna come.
Is parking permitted on the streets here?
Well, we won't know that yet. That's gonna be up to the chief of police to decide. Probably gonna be one side or the other, and he'll make that determination.
And quite honestly, we had I was just gonna say, Alberto, Gateway had done the drawing with those cars parked throughout everything, and it was 480 vehicles, I think we got there, 380 vehicles that we could park outside of someone's garage. I didn't want to show that to you guys because it looked like the airport. but there is more than adequate parking. And I'll say the view, to your point, this is contained. So this is not something that is dealt with in the public right of way. It is not an entire public road lined with cars. There is more than back, and I'll just mention it. If I had more than the 4 visitors that were here, we've still got availability of parking on the private lane in the back, which may happen. But my point being, it's contained, it's not in the public right of way.
One good thing about it, if there's any confusion, it's in the back.
It's in the back, it's not your problem.
It's not the front, it's in the back.
It's in the back.
And they can fight all they want in that alley. Well,
Bingo. That was literally the driving principle of why that rear, pick whatever word, alley, access road, private drive was introduced to eliminate that problem.
As long as you're talking about it, I'm sure you've thought this, but is the alley gonna be wide? I'm assuming trash for these townhomes will go through the rear. Is the alley wide enough to accommodate the garbage trucks?
The paved section of the alley would be 20 feet within a 30-foot private right of way. So yes, it's nearly your standard road section.
It is.
We just didn't want it to be.
It will be.
It'll be private.
Yeah, all private roads are gonna be built to the township standards anyways.
I'm sorry. From a vertical, I think you mean the road section. We will absolutely build the alley, it's just not.
The carway width will be,
Right.
will be the right length.
So we'll make it a full line, right now we're showing this 20 meters.
Yeah, we'll build it. And coming back to my Adams Township Planning Commission, we would build that in the event that in 30 years, there's an issue with it, it will have been built to a township standard as to avoid that confusion.
Well, just before we get off that real quick, is that I haven't come to grips yet as to whether we want that public or private. And we'll talk a little bit about how your HOA is gonna handle maintenance and snow plowing and things of that nature, but if it is built to township standards, which it will be, what I can see happening is in 5 years from now, the residents are all gonna get together, they're gonna come to a supervisor's meeting and say, hey, you know, why don't you take this over? In which case, because it's now a foot wider, the answer will probably be yes.
That's perfectly fine. Our rationale for making it private at this point, as your ordinance has, I will say, nuance, but there are some criteria with respect to how many units off of a private drive, and then we have a setback discussion and all that, which again is the spirit of a PRD. I'm not disagreeable to any of that, but we are doing everything we can possibly do to meet ordinance requirements. And what I think is build a really nice community and not have a lot of townhouse cars parked in front of townhouses on the road.
Yep.
That's the intent. As I stand here, I do want to just back up for just a second, as I did mention that, for the record, the drawings were appropriately submitted. I do want to acknowledge our receipt of the Nichols Slagle Engineering letters, both dated February 19th. One with the heading preliminary final PRD review, the other being the preliminary storm water review. I feel it's appropriate to acknowledge that we do have those letters. I did want to jump right to sort of the planning of this, with a mind to come back to these letters with respect to the committee's desire for me to go through one by one and address these letters. And that is, having been where you guys are for 20 years, sometimes we want to do that, sometimes we don't. But we do, again, acknowledge those letters. Mr. Slay, many of the comments that we have, I've got my handwritten notes here, are appropriately for final with respect to stormwater, and a lot of details that need to go onto these plans, but can only go onto these plans if or when we get through this concept. If that's agreeable.
Right, so what he's referring to obviously is that with any PRD, there's tentative approval and then final approval. Tentative approval or preliminary approval, I'll put it in salvo terms, I think the intent here is, well, is to consider the concept, is what you're really dealing with here. The details and the particulars, unless there's something that's, you know, dramatically an issue, would be handled final. But this is really looking at the concept and the variances and modifications that he's requested to see if that's to your liking.
I do. And I'm sorry my glasses are off my right foot. It's the only place that's. Unless I, or did it, do you feel like I missed anything from a zoning? Again, we feel we meet from the, I'll say the big picture items, from a density, from a use, from a type of living style, we meet the PRD ordinance to a T. Actually, we're well on. And that, to me, is probably the most important thing that I relay and get, at least get your feedback on.
Dan, would you like to go through your letter?
Sure. In everybody's packet this evening, there's a copy of the letter that we put together on this end. As Brett mentioned, is that we did have at least 2 advisory meetings with the developer. Jeff, myself, basically, sure, I think Al was at those, but one of the, just to kind of jumpstart things, was the original proposal, the bottom area, did not initially look like that. It was more conventional with the driveways in the front and things of this nature. And we all started looking at this a little bit more and came to the conclusion that if we had basically blemish-free front yards, how pretty that would look. And just put all the driveways in the back on a private road type of concept like that. And how that would create such a unique look for the township. In Indiana Township, we have nothing that looks like this, number one. So that was that thought. The second thing had to do with the long cul-de-sac. Now, I can tell you that in Indiana Township, we probably have at least a half a dozen cul-de-sacs that exceed 1,200 feet in length. And we've done a variety of things, such as widening, like the first portion of it, and we'll get to this in a second, as far as what I would call putting a bubble in halfway, so that there would be like a pull-off area or an area to push snow or something like that. And I'm not sure whether the 29-foot wide, or I'm sorry, 31-foot wide gets the township too much there. I mean, when I look at a long cul-de-sac like this, obviously the reasons why the length is truncated to 1,200 feet is because if during an emergency situation a car were to malfunction or something that were to block it, that the road would be wide enough that emergency vehicles could still go through. And we don't have any fire trucks here or anything, or fire police or anybody here. But during an emergency situation, I'm going to tell you these vehicles go up on the grass. I mean, it's not that fortunate. The other thing, just to kind of get your minds conceptually in place, is typically a vehicle is 7 feet wide. If you're playing with something that our conventional road is 24, so, or the carway is 21, so theoretically, you could put 3 cars across there, if you ever really needed to. So our roads system and our minimum standards are pretty much geared toward multiple vehicles, fighting for room across that road anyways, in an emergency situation. The trouble that I have with the 31-foot wide that actually we requested is that people wander. I mean, when you get a road without lines in it, there's no uniformity, where if road systems are a little bit tighter, you're much more apt to stay in your lane. So I'll leave the planning commission's thoughts as to the 31-foot. What I would like instead of that would be about halfway, or maybe thirds, is to put like a half of a cul-de-sac or something like that And what this also does is that it gives the kids a place to put a basketball hoop or something like that too. So there's some side advantages there when an emergency vehicle isn't operating. But having said that, let's just go briefly through the letter here. So starting off on page 1, I'm assuming you changed the note in the front there regarding the 22 acres. The next item had to do with overflow parking and turnarounds. And I think in the note, do you want to explain, I guess, the overflow parking, I guess, how is this gonna work? Or are you just saying that the width of the driveways are such that it's really incorporated into the plan as it says?
That's exactly correct. Is that while we certainly appreciate overflow parking and that need, it's more asphalt, it's more place. We've provided for as many as 6 vehicles per townhome park themselves with the availability, again, back to the private street scenario. If you got a 7th vehicle, park it behind someone's car in your own driveway or in the green space, meaning the area between these units. We would anticipate, and we are, this is the graduation party scenario where you've got an extra 10 or 12 or 15 cars. I don't feel it's appropriate to design everything around a scenario that happens maybe once a year, whereas we're providing 6 parking spaces per unit. And mindful, these are 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes, so these are not conventional, up to 5 bedroom homes where maybe there's 2 kids in college or high school, whatever the case may be. If you've got 4 cars, you're gonna have 2 cars. We're giving you, say, 4 extra parking spaces per townhome. So
plus a 2-car garage.
well, 4 in the driveway, 2 in the garage and I went back to my earlier statement about the 2-car garage is really a 1-car garage. So you've got that auxiliary or extra parking space assigned to each unit. We're really trying to avoid, and Dan, you said it very well, this entire concept of not having parking or anything in these front yards of these townhomes is really important to us, so that they can be nicely landscaped, and we're not doing little kind of pull-offs and you got whatever happening up there. It's a very important design consideration that we took.
So again, give that some consideration. I think it's adequate personally, and this is one of the items that we discussed at length during the advisories, but again, I'll just throw it out there and leave it that way. Again, coordinate with the postal office and the school district as to where they want to drop off, pick up, and I'll differentiate between children and mail, but where they want to pick up your mail and where you want to drop off your kids, and I'll let it go at that. On the PRD, again, are you going to phase it? Probably yes. But if you do, give us a schedule.
We would, correct.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Next page has to do with the buffer area, any buffer areas that you do grade, and our ordinance does allow grading in the buffer areas, just no structures. And there are no structures in the buffer area, right?
Correct.
Okay, if you do grade, landscape it. Moving on down to the garages, I think we discussed that enough. I'm just for my own knowledge, are the townhouses, are the single families all 2-car garages?
At a minimum, there'll be 2-car. Many of the lots would accommodate a 3rd car, but that is
3-car garages?
depending on the lot width.
Okay, let's just leave it at 2. So there'll be at least 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are at least 2, yes, correct.
Are we having 1 garage door or 2?
For the townhomes, it would be 1.
Okay, 1 big door.
One larger 16-foot wide garage
And
door.
for the homes?
I would say for the majority of the single families, it will be one larger, but based on customer selection and the width of the lot, there could be opportunity for either 2 8-foot doors or potentially a side, or a 3rd tacked on there.
So I might be getting confused in some of my developments that I'm reviewing, but in all of your townhouses, you're not the one I was talking to where some of the